It's the 120 podcast, Mikey from LA alongside Ben Hootie, and we're coming at you for our first real in-season edition of season two. We've done a lot of off-season talk, and now with one weekend under our belts for the Cubs season, Ben, we can be in a way worse mood if they would have gotten swept. But we had a nice Sunday. It's Easter Sunday while we record this, so happy Easter belated by the time those of you listen to this. And Ben, it was an interesting weekend, but the Cubs came out on top today. We'll go through all three of those games.
Yeah, let's just say good start to the Sunday Cubs this year because we know about how bad that was a year ago. So hopefully this trend continues, but hopefully we're taking weekend series so we can be even more positive when we're coming at you guys with our new episodes.
And Ben, we're going to get into detail when we talk about the Saturday game specifically, but I honestly don't think we'd be hitting the panic button at all if even if they would have gotten beat today. What we saw this weekend before we get into the ins and outs is a Texas team that won the World Series last year.
They
They are
are
awesome.
they're freaking good, dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we realize I think and you were obviously high on them because you picked up and win the division, and so was I, but I just thought there was going to be a step back. They're freaking good. I mean, you texted me earlier, you were like, Wyatt Langford's my new least favorite player just because he hit the ground running this weekend. He didn't hit his first major league home run, but he was just torching the Cubs. And then
Yeah.
Simeon was just hitting missiles here every single time, and they got Carter and Adolis. Every time he comes up, you're scared he's gonna go El Bombe, as they call it. But yeah, that's a really, really good Texas team. It just feels good to get one. And besides Saturday, I think they played this team really tightly. And while there's some negatives you could take away from the weekend, there's no reason to overreact just yet because I think the Cubs, for the most part, looked pretty solid other than Saturday.
It was 4-3 on opening night on banner night in which the Rangers hung up a apartment flag as their banner. You want to go into that real quick?
You know, that's bad. That might be an all-time bad banner. I understand why they did it because that stadium is so big, but they didn't put any thought into this
No,
design. Like I guarantee you any Texas Rangers fan that's a college student already has that hanging in their apartment for the last
exactly.
4 months.
It
So
looks like that flag behind you right now.
literally,
Yeah.
but I understand the reason for it being so big because it is such a big stadium and but it's ugly. It's bad. For your first one, put a
That
little thought
stadium
into it.
That stadium is incredibly thoughtful too. Like they talked about it today on the broadcast. Like the dimensions are exact with the secondary numbers of the like Pudge Rodriguez's number is part of the reason why it's so deep in specific spots. It's exactly 42 feet deep beyond home plate because of Jackie Robinson. There's a little 42. They like have their retired numbers along those like posts in right field, and they have like big wooden signs. I don't know why they didn't just have a big wooden sign, kind of like the Astros, because that stadium is a lot like Minute
Yeah.
Maid Park, and the Astros do a good job of having those big stationary pennants like along those beams. I really don't like this. I'm being nitpicky, but I don't like the banner.
Well, this weekend was the matchup of the team in probably all of Major League Sports with the biggest sports banner and the smallest championship banners because the Cubs probably have the
True.
smallest championship banners in sports, but we love those. I
Cubs
love the
are
Cubs
fine.
banner. It's kind of similar to what the Astros do, but obviously the Astros isn't actually a banner. It's just those wood pennants. And you brought up a good point because I like those wood pennants that the Astros do. They put a lot of thought into that, but
Me too.
This Rangers banner's just not it.
Well, the best thing is when the Cubs ever do that again too, it will look no different. Like you blink and you won't miss it because it's like there's already four flagpoles like two on each
Yeah,
of the scoreboard. So like they'll just replace that one that it was originally the NL pennant and now it's just like the Cubs team flag.
right.
They'll just replace that with, the World Series or NL champs or whatever comes next.
Before we get into the games, though, I will say, while the banner might not be nice, their
Yes.
rings are sick. The Road Warriors thing, and it literally makes up because they beat the Rays, Orioles, Astros, Diamondbacks. That is so cool. That is such a
Really
cool
cool.
touch that whoever designed those, like it's like a blink and you'll miss it. Like, oh
Right.
yeah, like that
Right.
that works out perfectly. So that was really cool, and everything about those rings was super
Right.
sick. The championship rings just keep getting more complex, and
Yeah.
they were talking about it on the broadcast the other day about the Braves championship ring. And apparently, when you open it up, there's like a little movie inside that place, which is crazy. But yeah, the Rangers World Series rings I think are pretty cool, and they're a really good team. And I've obviously given them my flowers across this podcast, but this weekend I was anti-Rangers.
I think things got
Oh,
pretty
look at that.
with the for those on audio, I just whipped out a fake $7 Cubs championship ring. I also have a Dodgers one from when I was in the Little League Dodgers a couple years ago, in like men's league, and we bought the Dodgers rings too. But I think one thing about the rings that I've noticed in recent years, like you said, Ben, I think it all came to a screeching halt in 2021, where like the Bucks ring was like the size of a envelope and you could detach it and make a necklace out of it. And then the Rams ring in 2021 was also just a rock. Like, yes, they're still intricate, but especially in baseball, I like the Rangers. It's not as insanely gaudy as every other one that you've seen in recent years
Right.
in baseball, or especially in football or basketball. It's cool. Like it's all silver. It's got the blue in the middle. Like it's cool. If a ring is just cool like that, I love championship rings. Sometimes it can be too much, and that one had awesome touches with the Road Warriors and just was cool. So I like to also think about what would they do if they won it again, and kind of like the Blackhawks said, you had to think of three different iterations of
Right.
ring. I don't know. There's room for improvement, but I like it.
Maybe they could be home Warriors next year and just win all their home. I'm just kidding. We'll see what happens.
They could use some of the same teams. They'd beat the Astros, the Orioles, the
Yeah.
Mariners. Who would E be? I don't even know. There's an E team to pull from. They'd have to pull something out.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not an E team I can think of. All right, we're beating around the bush. Thursday, interesting game. 4-3 in extra innings. Albert Azalai blows his first save of the year. Didn't technically get one today, I think, right? It was a
No.
4-run game. So
Yeah.
he did blow his first save of the year, his only opportunity of the year. So it was an interesting game though. Opening night, really competitive off the bat. The Cubs would score and the Rangers would always answer that same half inning. And I tweeted during that game that all that game made me think of the first night out of the new season was the Cubs could have been the Diamondbacks last year.
Yeah, they really could have. And I mean they were going back and forth with them. And I think my biggest takeaway from this weekend overall is just the Cubs have to fix their mistakes. Because especially when you're playing a team like the Rangers, who just has a lineup 1 through 9 where anyone can beat you, you have to score with runners in scoring position. You can't be making the stupid errors. And that did happen night
All
one.
week.
It almost really killed us today. But yeah, they got to fix those problems, and it's very similar. Literally, like obviously, it's great to go into a new season. You have a new manager, you're bringing together the same team, but as soon as night one picked up, it just felt like we were just continuing on. Like it was like 163. Like it's almost like it feels like such a continuation of last year. Do you like kind of agree with me when like where I'm
Yeah.
going with this?
Yes.
Like it's like we have not missed a beat. Like this team is
No.
going to give us a heart attack every single
Exact same
time,
team.
and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just the same team. They're putting themselves already in the same situations they were a year ago, and today was like the first time. And I know we're gonna get into game three, but today it felt like the first time where they like actually felt like a better team than they were a year ago. The first 2 days, it was like, okay, this is the same exact team as last year. But
Yes.
today I was like, okay, this team is way better managed. The lineup construction is just so much better. It feels like they're better after today.
Yeah. Somebody put on Twitter on day two that it felt so weird to have a starting lineup based upon matchups and based upon
Right?
pitching that in their lifetime that the Cubs manager produced this lineup. The big ticket item of game one, of course, was after 4 2/3 innings, Justin Steele leaves the game with what those who are mouth readers could predict. He said just a cramp, but Craig Counsell says, although it's more positive than he anticipated and Steele is already playing catch, he thinks it will be a 15-day IL stint that'll turn into a 30 and miss the entire month of April for the ace of your Chicago Cubs. Not the news we wanted on opening night, Ben.
No, that was a big blow. My heart sunk when I saw him go down like that. And you're just gonna have to, I don't know, manage the Tide these next 30 days without your ace. And that's a really tall task at hand because we've seen the last 2 days. Well, I think Jordan Wicks was pretty good. Um, they don't have the greatest pitching staff in terms of stuff. We know about the depth, and we're already seeing that in use, but um, it's tough not really having if you're losing Steele, they don't have a frontline guy at all. you're gonna have to hope that the Ben Browns and the Shotas and the Jordan Wicks become that over the next 30 days. Um, but yeah, it's a big blow, and I'm you don't write off the season whatsoever, but they're gonna have to find ways to win ball games every fifth day without a top 10 pitcher in baseball going on the mound.
So they end up calling up Ben Brown. We'll talk a little bit about him in game two, but to put a bow on game one, they lost 4-3 in extra innings. It was Drew Smiley on the mound who came in to try and save the day after Albert Alzolay couldn't take care of business. The Rangers take that one 4-3. The main blow in that one was with the lead in the ninth, following what was, how do you best put this? Michael Busch scoring via a foul tip that was truly a foul tip and never even should have put us in that position in the first place.
Yeah,
Right? I
but
mean,
it was a ball don't lie moment.
right. It really was. And it was, I mean, people are justifying it as the fact that Nick Madrigal had kind of a Bush League ground rule double call in a really weird stadium with weird dimensions. And it was like, the give and take, eye for an eye. But then Travis Janikowski pinch hit and hit a bomb off Albert Alzolay. I mean, the most random player to do so. It wasn't Adolis Garcia. It wasn't Langford in his big moment in his first game. Janikowski tanks one off Albert, and that game was basically over then.
The funniest part about that too is Janikowski's been in the leagues for like 10 years, and that's his 12th major league home run. Like,
Yep.
come on. You couldn't rip the script any better for the Rangers on their banner night. But yeah, it felt like a big blow that first game, but it just felt so good to have baseball back, right? Even after the Steele injury and everything, it was like, man,
Yeah.
I'm just happy to have this back. The
Yeah.
Steele thing blows and that lingers over that night one, but yeah, you moved on to the next day, and the next day
Yeah.
wasn't any better though.
Off day. Everyone's excited. See what happens in game two. Ring night, night game again. All eyes of the world are on him. The Nerfy bat hit, and then they go to inning number two. Dansby Swanson way out, 2-0, and then nothing from there. 4-2 Rangers, 5-2 Rangers, and then a 6-run eighth. And it was, yeah, that was downhill from there. Game two of the season, and it was like almost the one. I think it was the one that was in a weird, screwed up way. It was the most enjoyable viewing experience because I was kind of just like, whatever. It happens in baseball. Today, my heart was in my chest. Day one, my heart was in my chest. But Saturday, it was just kind of like they won the World Series last year. It is what it is. They just lit us up.
No, yeah. There, besides the Dansby home run, I would say the only other positive out of this game was the fact that Ben Brown did get to make his debut. And that's where I kind of go back to my point earlier, though. While he did give up some hard contact, his defense wasn't helping him out much either.
No, not at all.
He has some really nice stuff. And besides the hard contact, which I mean, he's a kid that's getting thrown into the fire against the reigning World Series champions. Like, you can't fault him too much. Uh, it feels really weird to have a Cubs starting pitcher that's getting right around near 100 miles per hour, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
No,
you
honestly, yeah.
never see that. And the slider was working really well. He was able to strike out Langford once. I think he got Jung on it, who's a really good player, as we know. So I think there's some positives, but if it is true that he's in line to start in Steele's spot, he's going to have a tall task next week with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So,
Yeah.
just was good to see him out there. And I think this would be a good time to talk about what me and you were kind of texting about when they brought him into the game.
Yeah.
And I also was talking to my brother about this was I like the fact that they didn't go out and get pitching this offseason, which I know everyone's complaining about because something like this was inevitable to happen where you lose a pitcher to injury. Jameson
Yeah.
Tyone's already down with an injury. Justin Steele is now down with an injury.
Yeah.
I'm happy that instead of them going to Smiley or Wisniewski, which we've seen already, they are ready to just start going to that minor league farm that they have,
Yes.
that the farm of arms, and say, you know what, let's put it on the table. We are trying to be better than we were a year ago. Let's see what we have in Ben Brown. And I'm happy that they're doing that. I'd rather see Ben Brown get a chance than the repeats of last year where Smiley had to slide into the rotation or Wisniewski and they're giving up 5 home runs a game. And that's no bash on It is a bash on Smiley. It's not a bash on Lesneski,
No.
but I'm happy that they are going that Brown is the ultimate answer if they weren't going to go out and get starting pitching.
They talked about it during the ESPN broadcast on Thursday night. They brought up that stat that's always been so interesting that I kind of jogged my memory on about last season. The Cubs starting rotation velo was towards the back end, literally almost the back end of the league. And then their farm, I mean, Iowa was some of the fastest rotation in baseball, in AAA baseball.
Yeah,
So the speed, if that's what you're looking for, is in Iowa as of
right.
now. And you're bringing him up piece by piece with Ben Brown as your 10th overall prospect. And then potentially by the end of this month, Kate Horton.
I don't know if it's by the end of this month. That'd be awesome if it is, but
It hope. I mean, it depends how this fades out. I mean, how long is Steele going to be gone? How long is Tyone going to
right.
be?
I saw something on Twitter. I don't know who tweeted it out, but um, I think Hendricks will be in the rotation all year. But I know some people have been talking about maybe him like if he does digress this year, then he doesn't really have a spot. Um, but someone was like the Cubs starting rotation by August could potentially be Steele, Wicks, Horton, Brown, and then I think it was like Tyone or something. Which is crazy because three of
What
the
about Imanaga?
oh, excuse me, Shota.
Yeah, yeah. I was like,
Completely crossed my mind.
no, no, it's okay. I just it was like, what am I missing there? Are we assuming that
No, no,
because they're
no.
not going to sign him?
They
No,
no,
not
they were talking about Imanaga, which is
yeah.
crazy because that's like three of the four or three of the five are homegrown talent. One you signed
Mhm.
as a rookie, and one you've basically developed because he came as a young player from the Phillies. Like that would be so awesome if that's the case, and if they're like all able to figure it out. And truly, that as we look at it right now, that's the rotation of the future.
Mhm.
The five guys that I just mentioned.
Who came in for Texas on night two that they were talking about? Was it David Robertson?
David Robertson pitched night one in extra innings.
Night one. Sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Night one, he
Yes.
came in for the Rangers, and Carl Ravitch was discussing David Robertson leaving the Cubs, I think via for Ben Brown.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. That was a Jed Hoyer masterclass
Yeah.
because they signed David Robertson as an undrafted free agent. And David Robertson was awesome for us that year, like one of the better Cubs relief pitchers in the last couple of
Mhm.
years. And he's still found a way to stick around and be a really solid reliever. But I mean, they were able to get a, you know, top 20 arm in all of minor league baseball
Yeah.
who's developed over the years. So just kind of tying a bow on it, I'm happy you brought that up because that is true. But I'm excited to see what Ben Brown has. I think he just ran into some tough luck night one and got thrown into the fire right away. But he had a really good first inning. And after that, kind of went downhill. But I'm excited to see what he has and try and not. He's never going to replicate what Steele was going to do for us, but try and
Yeah.
get there.
So as it stands, you and I were texting about this last night because my immediate reaction when Brown came into or when they showed Brown in the bullpen was, are they going to give Smiley a start? But you were alluding to the fact that they're treating this with the off day Thursday as if it is him getting an inning in 2/3 as if he would have started day one and then he's back
Correct.
to that number one spot. Is that how you still think they're going to treat this rotation?
Yeah, I think so. It just makes sense because he was supposed to go in Iowa on Saturday. So if he would have missed a start, he's completely off schedule. So
Yeah,
it's essentially like he's starting in Iowa in Texas.
right.
And they're treating it as if it was Steele's spot night one, and the off day gives him enough rest and throwing program or whatever it might be to make the start on Friday. So that's what I would assume is the case. If they decide to throw a curveball on us, I would actually be kind of pissed off. But I'm almost positive Ben Brown is starting against the Dodgers next week. It might not be like I would assume he's maybe like parlayed with Drew Smiley if I were to take a guess.
Yeah,
Like you're not just gonna throw the kid into the unless he has like a Jordan Wicks night one start like he did in
right.
Pittsburgh last year where he's just dealing. But I'm assuming that maybe the plan would be like 4 innings and then try and get two or three out of Smiley, maybe.
Yeah, I can
If
see
that
that.
makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. You kind of like we've used Smiley like that for the last 5 months dating back to last season. Like Smiley was a starter at first. Remember, Smiley almost no hit the Dodgers. I mean, he was a starter at first, and then he kind of became that, that emergency guy if the young starter doesn't work out. So we'll see
Yeah.
if that is kind of a tandem to replace Justin Steele. All right, let's move on to today, where all the stars align, where the Cubs needed to get a win. The Sunday Cubs, who were so infamously terrible last year, and they found a way to get it done today. Christopher Morel, first inning, started it off with a nice 3-run shot. Ian Happ had a great game. He had 4 hits, an RBI walk in the ninth. But in the middle of that, it was just a kind of a slugfest for a while, up to the first 4 or 5 innings. Just like the first 2 days, even when the Cubs get out to a lead, the Rangers had to answer. They kind of got to Wicks a little bit, but it was a lot of also, as you said, Ben, some faulty defense, some uncharacteristic stuff from Dansby Swanson, of course, too.
Yeah, I mean, Wicks gave up some hard contact, but just dumb luck. Morel over at third base made a really bad error. I'm hoping he's not too much in his head because I want him to figure out over there. But really bad error by Morel, just completely sped up his motion when he was trying to make a throw over to third. And then just uncharacteristic out of Dansby Swanson, which, led to a pretty long inning. And Wicks definitely shouldn't be walking the 8 and 9 hitters of the Texas Rangers to load the bases, but he got a lot of swing and misses on some really great
Yeah.
players today.
Yeah.
We know what that changeup could do. We talked about it so much last year. And yeah, I don't think you should buy too much into him giving up. I don't know how much, I don't know if you have the box score up.
Yeah,
How
I
much
do.
did he actually give up? 4 or 3?
Let me look. I have to scroll down. Google's
How
being
many
very
was
slow.
charged for him?
Um, it ended up being 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs.
Okay. So not too bad as it
Oh.
goes right, because when he was in there, he gave up 5 runs technically, but 2 earned.
And only, those 2 runs are the only earned runs at all today for the Cubs. All three of the other ones were unearned via errors from Morel and Swanson and a host of other people.
So yeah, I would say besides some hard contact and walking the 8 and 9 hitters of the Rangers, I think it was a pretty solid day for Jordan
Yeah,
Wicks.
I agree.
And he was consistent as nails at the end of the stretch last year. And I hope that continues into this year because once again, he's another guy that now that Steele's out, you kind of turn to him. We know what Hendricks brings, and he didn't look great on Saturday, but you turn to Wicks and you're like, show us what you got, kid,
Mhm.
because the stars are kind of shining on you and Shota.
It's interesting because Craig Counsell talked before the game. I was listening to it on the radio, and Ron Coomer had like his coaches meeting with Craig Counsell, and he was talking before the game about Counts was almost giving not scared of, but noting the interestingness of a fly ball pitcher playing against a team that has just lit him up from home runs so far in the first 2 games. And today was the only game that you didn't see the Rangers go long once out of the three.
Yeah. No, yeah,
And
that's a good point.
I have no reasoning to it. I wanted to point out that Wicks, like you said, Ben, he was creating ground ball contact and then getting some really nice strikeouts when the time
All
come.
right.
It was uncharacteristic for what Council expected from Jordan Wicks, but in a good way. It was a good game for him, and he saw a Cubs team that really was able to figure it out in the beginning of the game. Then it got really frustrating for the middle. Like I said before, I feel like this game was like, oh my god, this is game 3. I shouldn't feel like this. They tie it up. It's five. It's scoreless through the 6, 7, 8. In the 8th, they leave the bases juiced. In the ninth, they have the bases loaded. I believe it was Hap up to 2 strikes, and then Hap gets walked in to score a run.
Yeah.
And it kind of started to explode from there. Seiya Suzuki made up for a tough error today with an awesome hit, a 2-run RBI shot. It started to connect, and then that's basically all she wrote.
Right. And Cody Bellinger with a really nice rip with 2 strikes down the
Yeah,
line, hits off the first baseman, Jared Walsh, who he exploded this weekend. Didn't even
yeah,
know he was on the Rangers.
yeah.
And he's been like really bad for the last 2 years. I know he made an all-star game. He exploded. But going back to the Cubs, yeah, just a really nice ninth inning. They were leaving so many runners on in innings previous, and it was like, here we go again. We've
This
seen
again.
this
Yeah.
story over and over again. But I mean that those ninth inning Cubs, they were just working at bats, great at bat from Mike Talkman to get on base. Who was in front of him that got on? Oh, Nico got hit by a pitch. Masherboni, they had the infield in on that one, which I was kind of surprised about.
Astro
But
grounded into something.
yeah, uh, but yeah, just good at bats. Ian Happ looked phenomenal today, and I'm actually super excited to see him in this leadoff role, which I think we saw. I think where was he batting yesterday? 6? Yes.
Nico?
No, Ian. Ian was in
Ian.
the 6 hole yesterday based off the matchup,
And he let up today.
which was a lefty. So I think whenever we see a righty, we're gonna see Ian Happ in the leadoff hole for the rest of the season, which I love it. I mean, four
Again,
hits. It's
again, changing the lineup based on match.
yes,
It's
it
such
was
a foreign
awesome.
concept to us,
Um,
not the world.
but yeah, it's that was a great ninth inning, and it really gave me like a boost of energy because I was
Yes.
like, these guys are hitting, the big blue train is moving.
Yes. Ooh, he said it.
I
He said it
said
before I
it.
could. I almost tweeted it today, but then I didn't want to blow it because when I tweeted it on Thursday, it blew it.
I'll say it. I'll
As,
say
as
it.
you and as you and our mutual friends would say that it's this Mikey curse that doesn't exist.
For Noe curse.
Fernelli curse. It's literally not real. I don't have any effect on any of it.
One thing
Said
I
that I was talking about it with Scotty Scheffler today in the PGA. I don't have any effect on it.
One thing I do want to mention really quick, Mikey, before we get into like overall thoughts from the weekend.
Hmm.
Um, we said the Cubs bats went dry after the fifth inning, and
Hmm.
that's when the bullpen went to work.
Yeah.
Amazing work from the bullpen
Yeah.
today. Just looked awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so I think who did they go today? They went Merriweather for two, if I'm not mistaken. He looked awesome. It feels good to have like him like fully back after he was completely overused at the end of last year. Leiter looked good. I like what we're seeing out of Neris in two starts thus far, or excuse me, two relief appearances, and then Alzolay. So that's probably going to be the way that they go with that 1-2-4. And one other reliever I want to mention, Jose Cuas looked awesome when he had
Mhm.
to fix Hendrick's damage
Yeah.
Saturday. So I feel like those are going to be the five guys that we already know about the four
Yeah.
previous, but who's going to be that fifth guy that Craig Counsell really leans on? It seems like it's going to be Cuas.
They talked about how Neris is brought in to bring some weight off a Quas or a Merriweather or a lighter. And all four of those guys who came in relief of Wicks today all picked up at least one strikeout. Merriweather, Neris, and Alzolay all had two. The only one out of those four that went more than an inning was Julian Merriweather. So all these guys were extremely productive in their inning of work. In a
Yeah.
game where you were leading by 1 run or tied, and then at the time Abbott came in, they were up by four, getting outs via the K ball is as big as you can be, and they were all being extremely productive. That is something you love to see because especially with so much, I don't want to say unsurety, like we don't know what's going to happen to this rotation, but we really don't. So you need to know that you're going to have that bullpen available if need be. If your pitcher goes down in the third inning, if Brown gets a start against the Dodgers and he gets lit up in the second, you can stay in a game as long as your offense can stay hot.
Right, exactly. Put it perfectly. I'm excited to see what this bullpen brings, and it makes it even better that feels like we have a manager and counsel
Yeah.
who knows who to go to in the right situation and really figure it out. So another guy that I think is going to be used a decent amount. He did not have a good first appearance, but Yency Almonte as well, I think will be in the mix. So um, yeah, it's a solid bullpen. I don't think there's anything to hang your head over, and I like the point that they brought up of Neris and how they brought him in because there was so much pressure on Mark Leiter and Julian Merriweather last year to just keep it like hold the game for Adbert Alzolay. So hopefully it stays and we have a really nice one 1, 2, 3, 4 punch out of the bullpen for the rest of the season.
All right, let's get to some random overreactions and underreactions and all kinds of random generalizations after the first weekend. I'll start. I'm not really high on Nick Madrigal anymore. The Nicky two strike experiment feels wrong. I'm kind of done. My dad called him Nicky ground balls today. It's or Nicky two outs. I think it might be time, especially the problem is Morel hasn't been that good at third, so we kind of need to keep Nicky two strikes around for a while, but I don't know. I'm not sold.
It's it's just not gonna work. He's a great like utility player. Like he's fine off the bench, but if he's gonna be, I know he didn't start the last two games, but it's just yeah, I'm right there with you. I just hold it over until Matt Shaw's up. That's my biggest thing,
Yes,
right?
that's a good point. That's a
And I
good
know
point.
a lot of people on Twitter are upset. They're like, if you're gonna start Nick Madrigal, why didn't you just go get Matt Chapman? Guys, it's fine. We might have a better player in the minor leagues right now. So
Fair enough. Fair
um
enough.
let's just hold on and see what happens. Madrigal had a nice double night one, but yeah, that it was so funny. I don't know if it was you or I saw someone on Twitter and it's like, man, this this inning really had me juiced. And then I realized that Nick Madrigal was in the 4th spot in the lineup because he came in to replace Christopher Morel for defensive purposes. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
It's interesting, like how almost detrimental is that he doesn't strike out. There's a man
Right?
on first and one out. You don't need to just slap it to third. You don't. You don't need to do that, Nick. Just strike out. You don't have the pitch. You don't need to make that weak contact. Make ground balls.
That's what I was thinking with Mastrobuoni when he came up. I was like, just
Yeah.
if you're gonna do anything, just strike out. Either
He
put it
got
either put it
Mastro
in
got
the air or
lucky
strike
because
out.
Mastro got lucky because there was someone on third, so they had to go home. Otherwise,
Yeah.
that was a textbook Mastro double play in
And it's
motion.
because they have that big middle infield where it's like you have to play in on that situation
Yeah.
because you're trying to keep the game tied going into the ninth, and you have to go home. So uh, I don't know. It seems like I will say one thing. I don't think David Ross, or excuse me, David Ross, Craig Counsell is the biggest
There's a
fan of Nick Madrigal. I could tell already though he's obsessed with Miles Mastrobuoni.
I,
He's been his first option off the bench every single night so far that he's had a pinch hit.
going back to what you said a minute or so before, though, as a baseball fan, as a former high school baseball manager and player, you know that in extra innings, if there's a man on third and you're the road team, you have to go home to save a run. Otherwise, the game's over. But Carl
Right.
Ravitch, I don't know if you saw that
I
On
did.
ESPN. We were talking all about that. That was interesting. How he made a slip. You and I are broadcasters too. I'm not going to dog on him for it. Like we've been there before too. But it was the what was the exact quote? I should have pulled it up. It's like the Cubs decided to go home and not to get the out at first, and then he tried to save it like a play later by saying they're not trying to make a double play, and then
Yeah.
like a couple plays later, he said something like, "All right, I was wrong." That was good.
Before we get into some more overreactions and underreactions, I hate ESPN so much. I saw that they were talking about like potentially opting out of their baseball contract. Would I be okay with that? Maybe. You were telling me on uh when you watched the Padres Dodgers Soul game, you were talking about this win probability thing. And I was like, all right, this is just Mikey overreacting. Like he's like it cannot be that serious. In my head, I'm like, I see the graphic. It looks stupid, but it cannot be that serious. Jesus Christ, they just kept, oh, I shouldn't be saying that on Easter Sunday, but but um they just kept mentioning, look at the way that the win probability is flipping and switching. And I put out a tweet, I'm like, they are unbearable. But make sure you go bet on ESPN Bet.
Yeah. No, it's so bad. It's
Oh, it's
literally
horrible.
that's what it's for. It's literally there because the problem with sports betting right now is that everything all viewership is supposedly supposed to be revolving around it because so many people are into it for just that reason. So I get they're following the money, but like it's unbearable. I mean, and I don't think they'll point it out the whole rest of the season. I doubt they'll always be like, look at how the win probability shifted. And Ravitch and the ESPN team kind of related it to like the K zone and stuff. Like they're like it'll just become something in the background. I guess I would have loved it would have literally made me laugh so hard as the minute that Steel went down if the slider just went to 100% Rangers that would have killed me. But no, I love it because like it'll be like a ball in like a 2-1 count in the sixth inning, and there'll be like a ball to make it 3-1 with nobody on and no outs, and it'll be like, oh, it just up to 67%.
Yeah. No,
It's
like
ridiculous.
when how did the Cubs get their RBIs on night one? I'm trying to remember. Dansby Swanson hit the sac fly. Did Cody Bellinger have a double? Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, Cody had one.
They went to break and it's like, and the win probability just keeps flipping and flopping or something like that. I'm like, dude, stop. And that's when I had to tweet. I was like, all right, Mikey was right about this. Mikey was right. This is horrible.
Yep. Fernelli cursed it.
Was it a
So we
good
look.
curse or
Do
good?
you have any major overreactions before we move on to the Rockies? I think my only one is Nick Magical.
Hmm. I mean, we could overreact about Steele a little bit. I think we already mentioned that. I will say, maybe not an overreaction. No, I'm not like gonna like call it, but is besides the defense, is a Christopher Morel All-Star season loading?
Been really good at the dish.
Like really good. And it's insane because his like it feels like he's starting to understand the strike zone too. Like he is taking close pitches and he is just making such hard contact every single time he puts bat to ball. I mean that at bat he had today, in the later innings,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember, did he end up walking on that, or it was right after
I know what you're talking about, but I forget what he.
he
But
had
he,
like an 11 pitch at bat.
yeah.
And I don't think he struck out either.
No,
Oh,
he
he
had. Sorry,
popped
he
up.
ended the
He
inning.
popped
Yeah,
up. He popped
yeah,
up. But either way, such a good at bat. Like 10 pitches, just working the strike zone, making the pitcher like he's batting in the cleanup spot, and the pitcher is just you could tell is so worried about making a mistake to him.
yeah,
So I don't know. He looks good. He's already got a home run to his name after this weekend. Definitely was the best Cubs hitter by far
yeah,
this weekend, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, I like what I'm seeing thus far. I'm not gonna say he's a lock for an all-star team, but is there an all-star team loading? Maybe, maybe.
Maybe he does that thing before every single pitch in a big moment where that Wilson Contreras would always tell me
Yes.
for every pitch, he's like huge breathe in while he kind of holds his lightsaber there.
And the
It's
funniest, most people like take like a step out of the box. Like I know obviously like pace of play is sped up so they can't do their whole thing anymore, but he just stands there. I've
Mhm.
always noticed that. Like everyone else kind of like does a little walk, does a little shrug. He just stays in the same place and just
Mhm.
looks at his bat and then
Yep.
just keeps going.
I think maybe an overreaction that somebody might say that I'm going to probably dispel, and I think you definitely agree, obviously, is I said it today when I was texting you. Seiya was born to be a DH only, but I don't think his really awful play today defensively is indicative of him being poor at defense throughout this year. He made a really nice diving catch on night two. I think he'll be fine defensively. I think people are going to overreact and say there's no reason Seiya should be in the outfield, but I think he'll figure it out.
No, I like him in right field. He made a great play yesterday.
Mhm.
You don't have a lot of options. Well, I guess you do in the farm system, but I don't care. I like him as a right fielder. I think the defense improved last year. It's overshadowed by a drop ball that ended the Cubs season, but who cares? That was a really bad play today, but I'm also not going to blame him because that Texas ballpark is so weird because
It
of
is
how
weird.
big it is
It is
and
weird.
the sea and obviously the dome and all the above. So um it seems like balls like uh they'll like carry there a lot longer than other places. Like there were a couple times like Nico night one had like a line drive up the middle that at Wrigley Field that's getting down right away, but it just stayed in the air and just
He
went
made the
right
catch.
into the center fielder's glove. He ripped the ball
Squirmed
like
around a little bit.
yes, yes. So I'm not gonna blame it too much. I think he's got great defense. I'm perfectly fine with him being our right fielder.
He'd never played there either in his career. He's not used to it, and I'm good with it too. All
Yeah.
right, the Rockies this week. There is no break, so by the time you listen to this, the Cubs and Rockies may be underway at Wrigley Field tomorrow at 1:20, Monday at 1:20, and then Tuesday 6:40, Wednesday 6:40, Friday 1:20 as they start against the Dodgers. So there is an off day Thursday, but two home series in a row. The Cubs with a historically hard start to their schedule this season as they get the Rangers, Dodgers, and Padres as three out of their first four. But you would think this series against the Rockies is a good moment to kind of get your confidence going and start the season off well.
Yeah, the biggest thing is hopefully it gets played. I
Fair
know
enough.
some real bad weather is in the forecast for um, Chicago over the next 3 days. So hopefully it gets played. But yeah, uh, this is a good time to really get yourself either over 500 or just about at 500. You got to take 2 out of 3 or sweep them if you really are like if you want to be a good team this year. The Rockies are one of the worst teams in baseball. You got to take care of business. They're coming to your place. Showdown on the mound, night one. Exciting stuff. Excuse me, day one. I love that they do the 1:20 start time, even when it's on a Monday for
On a
opening
Monday.
day. So yeah, exciting stuff. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to get those boys back out to Wrigley Field and see what they could do. We'll have 6 more games under our belt the next time we record, unless something insane happens. But yeah,
The career Cardinal Dakota Hudson on the bump for the Rockies tomorrow. We'll see what he can do if the game gets played. Very familiar with Wrigley Field now on the mound as a Colorado Rocky. From there, we will see as Shota Imanaga gets his first start as a Cub. Ben, I think you and I, as of right now, prospectively going separately to the Cubs game on the 6th, correct? The Pat Hughes night?
still to be determined. I don't know what's
Same,
going on with that.
same.
See, I want to go, but we'll see what happens.
Tickets are steep for that one. They're
Yeah.
getting steeper day by day. I have a group that's excited to go. We'd have to drive directly from ISU. As you can see based on my background, I'm at home right now, but for Easter, I'm going back tomorrow and potentially to the city on Saturday for a 3 p.m. start time. I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect for
Keep more
us.
of that. Keep more of that. I love that. Leaving ISU at like 10 o'clock, get back by like 8. I love it. It's a day trip.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful Sunday, Ben, with a nice Cubs win. Any big plans today on Easter Sunday? I know you stayed at ISU. What'd you do today?
Watched the Cubs, did some cleaning, got some homework done, watched
Nice.
DJ Burns dominate Duke, which is just
Mm-hmm.
awesome. What a great story. Good weekend of college basketball. Um, yeah, it was a solid Easter Sunday. Got myself some Panera. That was my Easter lunch, I guess you could say.
Love it.
So yeah, it was a pretty good Easter Sunday. Very, very quiet Easter Sunday.
Yeah, good. I golfed. We were one of two groups on the course because everyone thought it'd be super cold. It ended up being pretty decent.
Yeah.
I got something for my mom for Easter. It was a cup, like a tumbler water bottle, but it has like a speaker on the bottom. I don't know if you've seen that. So it's
Okay.
like you can have it like it has like a detachable speaker, but it has like no bass sound to it. So you put it in like a cup holder in like a golf cart and it like amplifies. So I was like all the way away from my cart. I could hear Pat Hughes, Chicago Cubs baseball. Like I could hear it all the way. So it was good.
Nice. That's
It was
awesome.
perfect. I
That's
golfed like
awesome.
shit, but
Hey, that's okay. Don't we
neither
all?
here nor there. Yeah. The season's just starting. Ben, you're gonna be a big golfer by the time the season's over too.
I am. I'm just waiting for the weather to get nice.
The 120 golf round. What I mean, I don't even know what our shared line would be. I've been golfing for years and I'm not very good. If you and I break like 190 together, I'd be thrilled for 18.
I'm not good.
Me neither. I think I had like a 49 today. I've gotten way lower before. I'm decent before. Like I think I've gotten like the high 30s like once in my life, but like for 9 I've played, but like for 18 I'm lucky to be breaking 100.
We'll update the people if we ever go.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll lie about it, but we'll have to.
Follow our Twitter. We've been
Yeah,
updating all weekend.
please.
Trying to get the other socials up. We've ran into some technical difficulties with them, but Twitter for sure. If you're really trying to stay updated with us, that's the place to be. Or
All
X,
right. Well,
X.
yeah, X. I was tweeting today about the Cubs. I still refuse to call X because there's no word for X. Like you can't say Xing.
I'm Xing.
There's no verb for like there's no you can't be like there's like tweeting, Xing. It doesn't fit the same.
No, not at all.
Like it just looks like zing if you do Xing. I said on Twitter that just now that the Cubs pitching staff has the best game like field to tweet ratio of all time because
That was an awesome tweet.
Abbott, Wicks, and Steele all within the hour after winning, or ish, like within an hour or two, all had some kind of tweet out. It was like W, play the damn song, and then Wicks, religious in his faith a lot, saying "Happy Easter, everybody, he has risen," which it's awesome to see him be interested in something like that and then always be sticking to it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we'll leave it to it on this Monday. Have a great Monday. Have a great week. Go Cubs! Back at the friendly confines.